In the year 1810, the most powerful empire on Earth sent its entire navy after one person. Not a general, not a king, not even a man. A former prostitute from a floating brothel, who rose to command over 300 ships and more than 40,000 pirates. She burned entire fleets. She humiliated the Portuguese navy. She made the British East India Company reroute their trade routes just to avoid her waters. And when the Chinese Empire finally tried to destroy her, she didn't just survive. She won. Then she walked away, retired peacefully, and died an old woman in her own bed. This is the true story of Ching Shih, the most successful pirate in human history, not Blackbeard, not Henry Avery her, and almost nobody has heard her name. To understand how a woman came to command the largest pirate fleet the world has ever seen, we have to go back to southern China. In the early 1800s, piracy along the South China Sea wasn't a fringe activity. It was an industry. Thousands of fishermen, smugglers, and outlaws banded together into massive pirate confederations, preying on merchant ships moving silk, salt, and opium along the coast. In the middle of this chaos worked a young woman named Xiang, employed on a floating brothel in Canton, a common and often brutal profession for poor women at the time, offering little control over their own lives. In 1801, her life changed direction. A pirate commander named Zheng Yi, head of one of the most powerful pirate fleets in the region, took notice of her. What happened next depended entirely on her own terms. Historical accounts agree on one striking detail. She did not simply accept his proposal, she negotiated. She demanded equal partnership in his fleet, a share of all plunder, and joint command authority. Zheng Yi agreed. They married. And from that moment forward, she was no longer a woman surviving on the margins of Chinese society. She was becoming one of its most feared powers. Together, they built something unprecedented, the Red Flag Fleet. A confederation uniting rival pirate groups under one command structure, with clear rules, shared profits, A well-run criminal empire, she understood, needed order more than most legitimate governments did. Under her law, the Red Flag Fleet didn't just survive her husband's death. It grew larger than ever before. By 1808, the Red Flag Fleet was no longer a pirate nuisance. It was an existential threat to the Qing dynasty's control over its own coastline. Estimates from historical records suggest her fleet had grown to somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 ships and 40,000 to 60,000 pirates, vastly outnumbering many national navies of the era. The Qing government could no longer ignore her. They deployed the Imperial Navy in force, determined to crush the Red Flag Fleet once and for all. It went badly, very badly, for the Empire. In one confrontation, Ching Shih's forces captured 63 Imperial Navy vessels intact, along with the Imperial officers aboard them. Rather than executing them outright, many were given a choice: join the pirate fleet or die. Many joined. Humiliated and desperate, the Qing court turned to foreign powers for help. Both the Portuguese Empire, then a major maritime power with a strong presence in Macau, and the British East India Company, the most powerful trading corporation on Earth, were brought in to help destroy her. This was not a minor alliance. This meant one of the largest and most sophisticated colonial military powers in the world was now actively hunting a single pirate fleet. In 1809, Portuguese naval forces engaged Ching Shih's fleet directly in a prolonged confrontation near the Pearl River. They lost. Portuguese warships, technologically superior in cannon range and construction, were still unable to break the discipline and coordination of her fleet. Ching Shih's forces used the terrain of the coastline, superior numbers, and ruthless tactical discipline to fight the combined Qing-Portuguese-British effort to a standstill. Try to comprehend the scale of what had just happened. A former brothel worker, commanding a fleet of criminals, had fought off the combined naval might of the Chinese Empire, the Portuguese Empire, and British colonial interests, and was still standing. By 1810, something unusual happened. The Qing government, having failed militarily, offered Ching Shih and her fleet full amnesty. This wasn't a surrender extracted through defeat. It was a negotiated settlement, offered because the Empire had concluded it could not defeat her by force. And here is where Ching Shih's story becomes almost impossible to believe if it weren't so thoroughly documented. She negotiated the terms of her own surrender from a position of power, not weakness. Of the roughly 17,000 to 20,000 pirates under her command who accepted the amnesty offer, the vast majority were allowed to keep their plunder. And many former pirate commanders, including her adopted son and eventual husband, Zhang Bo, were given official ranks in the imperial military. Zhang Bao himself was made a colonel in the Qing Navy. Ching Shih walked away from a life of piracy not in chains, not in disgrace, but as a woman who had effectively forced the largest empire in Asia to negotiate with her as an equal. She used her wealth to open a gambling house in Canton, living out the rest of her life in relative comfort and respectability. She died in 1844, reportedly in her 60s, an old woman surrounded by family, having outlived nearly every naval and military commander sent to destroy her. No pirate in recorded history, not Blackbeard, not Captain Kidd, not Henry Avery, commanded more ships or men or extracted a better outcome for themselves than Ching Shih did. Here is what makes her story almost unbelievable by modern standards. Most Western pirate legends end in execution, betrayal, or death at sea. Blackbeard was hunted down and killed, his head displayed on a ship's bowsprit as a warning to others. Captain Kidd was hanged in London, his body left on public display for years as a deterrent. Henry Avery vanished, likely murdered by the very men he trusted with his fortune. Ching Shih did none of that. She built an empire from nothing, defended it against 3 world powers simultaneously, and then walked away on her own terms, wealthy, respected, and free. She remains, by almost every measurable standard, the most successful pirate to ever live. And yet, walk into any bookstore, watch any pirate movie, ask almost anyone to name a famous pirate, and her name will likely never come up. If you found this story as unbelievable as we did, make sure to subscribe, because history is full of stories this powerful, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be told.